Coming up on today's Airborne, Learjet 85's first flight is nearly a year behind schedule. The FAA announces UAS test flights, and a free SportPlane Resource Mini-Guide is to debut after Sebring. Welcome to Airborne on Aero-TV. I'm Ashley Hale. Bombardier had hoped to fly the new Learjet 85 before 2013 ended, but on December 31st, it announced that there would be another delay in getting the airplane flying. Bombardier had planned the airplane's first flight for early in 2013, but pushed that projection back by 9 months in February, citing a problem with the manufacturer of all composite fuselages at a plant in Mexico. It's reported that the plane maker said that the issue was resolved in October and that a first flight would be coming by the end of the year. But now the company will only say that a first flight is planned in the coming weeks. In October, Bombardier towed a Learjet 85 that looked complete out of a hangar in Wichita for a press event. And a month later, it reported in a financial document that the airplane had nearly completed testing to assure safety of flight. Now it says it will file an application for a flight test permit with the FAA, quote, shortly. The Learjet 85 is scheduled to enter service in the third quarter of 2014. The FAA has announced the selection of the 6 public entities that will develop unmanned aircraft systems research and test sites around the country. These test sites will conduct critical research into the certification and operational requirements necessary to safely integrate UAS into the national airspace system over the next several years. Today, UAS perform numerous functions in the public and private sector. In selecting the 6 test site operators, the FAA considered geography, climate, location of ground infrastructure, research needs, airspace use, safety, aviation experience, and risk. In totality, these 6 test applications achieve cross-country geographic and climate diversity and help the FAA meet its UAS research needs. The selected sites and institutions include the University of Alaska, the State of Nevada, New York's Griffith International Airport, the North Dakota Department of Commerce, the Texas A&M University at Corpus Christi, and the Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. Each of these sites will be delving into selected areas of research for UAS operation. While our crews are working diligently on both the upcoming 3rd edition of the SportPlane Resource Guide and the all-new AeroSports Guidebook, we're all well aware of the need for some introductory information to provide guidance right now to those looking at the LSA and SportPlane business. With that in mind, A&N's Jim Campbell has also started work on a SportPlane Mini-Guide that will be offered for free to the SportPlane community shortly after the conclusion of this year's Sebring Sport Aviation Expo. Provided as an ebook, the SportPlane Mini-Guide will contain chapters and sections detailing introductory info about sport planes and LSAs, including topics like how to choose a sport plane, questions you need to ask the manufacturers, a know before you buy lesson containing some expert SLSA airplane buyer's advice, our highly anticipated annual Flyers Dozen list of the best LSA sport planes of 2014, as well as a list of important resources and so much more. We'll be at Sebring this year with a critical eye towards checking out the latest offerings and technologies. We welcome suggestions from the industry about potential topics and issues that should be considered for inclusion in either the Mini-Guide or the 3rd edition SportPlane Resource Guide. For those wishing to get a copy of the Mini-Guide, a simple email to sprg-mini@aero-news.net and a simple selection of either the EPUB, Kindle, or Adobe Acrobat version will get you a reservation for the guide as soon as it's released in the upcoming weeks. And remember, it's free. The premier exposition for model aviation, AMA Expo 2014, will be held January 10th through the 12th at the Ontario Convention Center in Ontario, California. Anyone with an interest in general or model aviation is encouraged to attend to learn more about the model flying hobby. You'll be able to view and purchase the latest in model aircraft technology, mingle with model flying enthusiasts, listen to presentations by aviation experts, and enjoy a full weekend of camaraderie. This year's expo will include more than 200 exhibitors with hundreds of products and displays. Check out multi-rotors, unmanned aerial vehicles, and equipment that allows a model to be flown through video from the pilot's view inside the aircraft, known as FPV flying. New this year is a multi-rotor flying demonstration area that provides a hands-on FPV experience with the Roswell flight test crew. There's a very fine line between model aviation and full-scale flying, and this is the place to learn all about it. We have some good news on the airshow front. U.S. Marine Corps base Cherry Point had previously announced that they would not be able to put on their popular airshow in 2014. But now the Public Affairs Office says that the show will go on in May of this year. The Havelock, North Carolina Chamber of Commerce says that the show generally attracts some 250,000 people over its 3-day run. Havelock Mayor Will Lewis said that the biannual show is always a big boost to the local economy. The show is planned for May 16th through the 18th at the Cherry Point base. Parking and attendance are free as the base considers the event an open house to enhance community relations. After a tumultuous airshow season, we hope this is a sign of good things to come. It looks like they just ran out of time. A group building a replica of the Benoist 14 flying boat for a reenactment of the first scheduled airline flight on January 1st was not able to get the airplane ready for the flight Wednesday morning. So a Hoffman X4 mullet skiff was used to make the flight instead. As we reported on Airborne last Tuesday, the project was spearheaded by Kermit Weeks, the owner of the Fantasia Flight attraction located between Orlando and Tampa, Florida. On January 1st of 1914, a Benoist 14 carried the first passenger on a regularly scheduled flight between St. Petersburg and Tampa, a flight which took about 30 minutes. Weeks had funded and built the replica Benoist himself with the help of volunteers. He had even commissioned an exact replica of the engine built from scratch for the effort. It's planned to have the airplane flying sometime in 2014, and we'll keep you posted. Generation Orbit Launch Services in Atlanta is preparing for test launches off the runway at the Cecil Spaceport in Jacksonville, Florida in 2014, in anticipation of its first commercial flight in 2016. The company specializes in launching micro and nano satellites from a rocket attached to a modified Gulfstream G3 business jet. The tenant agreement stipulates that the Jacksonville Aviation Authority will make available hangar space and other facilities, launch command and control facilities, and equipment. Additionally, Generation Orbit will have access to the runway, rocket test areas, coordination with FAA range authorities, and air traffic control. The 2-year agreement has an option to renew for 3 one-year terms. JAA will match a $1.8 million grant from the Florida Department of Transportation and Space Florida to construct a hangar designed to accommodate commercial launch vehicles. Space Florida is responsible for fostering growth in Florida's space industry. You're watching Airborne, more in a moment.
Redbird Skyport is a multifaceted aviation laboratory charged with developing innovative solutions to the issues facing the industry.
It started out as a vision for a laboratory where we could objectively measure the systems and the processes that we were developing. Being able to put some objective measures behind the anecdotal evidence that we have about the value of motion and the application of this technology is very, very important, because until we can objectively measure it and play that data back, we can't design training systems that make the best use of it.
For more information about Redbird flight simulations, as well as Redbird's new Skyport, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com or www.redbirdskyport.com.
Rebuilding the sport aviation world one aviator at a time. That's A&N's new AeroSports ebook series, your resource guide to the ultimate in aviation adventures. AeroSport will feature the straight skinny on learning and enjoying 16 unique aviation sports, from ultralights and ballooning to aerobatics, gyroplanes and hang gliders to parachuting, home builds and general aviation to RC models. All this and more will be coming soon with the new updatable AeroSport guide for your favorite electronic devices. Get your advance order in now at www.aero-sport.net.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero-TV, our website, or our podcast, drop us an email to news-spy@aero-news.net. As the year drew to a close, the NTSB issued 5 new safety alerts that provide general aviation pilots with mitigating strategies for preventing accidents. NTSB Chairman Deborah Hersman said, quote, "General aviation safety is on our most wanted list of transportation safety improvements. At a time when many people are putting together their list of resolutions for the coming year, these 5 safety alerts remind pilots, mechanics, and passengers of basic safety precautions to add to their checklist to ensure a safe flight for all on board," end quote. The 5 new safety alerts are: make sure crew and passengers use restraint systems correctly, use proper procedures to prevent carburetor icing, make sure the emergency locator transmitter is armed, secure all loose items in the cabin, assure proper use of fiber or nylon self-locking nuts. A safety alert is brief information that pinpoints a particular safety hazard and offers particular remedies to address the issue. Made in America sounds really good, particularly when it's applied to the Boeing company. Analysts say Boeing's financials look good through the first 3 quarters of 2013, and the company's 4th quarter is also likely to be strong. Forecasts are good for 2014. The report indicates the company faces challenges from cuts in U.S. government spending, but that can be offset by a substantial backlog of orders for commercial airplanes and cost-cutting initiatives in the defense sector. No reduction in the production rate for Boeing's commercial airplanes are foreseen, and the existing backlog would take 8 years to clear at the current rate of production. The analysts say that it expects Boeing's backlog to grow in 2014, driven by strong airline orders. The defense segment could see challenges, but some of the cuts in military spending by the U.S. government can be offset by growth in military exports. It's Friday at last, and that means it's time for ANN's editor-in-chief to check in with his weekly Barnstorming commentary. This week, Jim believes that yes, we can fix aviation. Here's this week's Barnstorming.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, folks. Happy New Year. Let me start out with something that I've been thinking about quite a bit over the last few years. As you know, we've had more than our crosses to bear at this point and quite a few battles to fight. But it's left me a lot of time to think about what really needs to be done. Because to many, aviation is not only swirling the drain, but the deed is done. It will not come back as it was. And to be perfectly honest, I agree with that to a point. It will not come back as it was because that model is no longer sustainable. We are a different people. We're a different world, a different country. We have a different way of communicating. Our lives are different. The way we interact with each other, all different. So aviation will be different as well. But the fact of the matter is this: we can build an aviation world that is sustainable through the future. But there are some lessons, some things that we've seen in the past that we really need to take a look at. First and foremost, we need to gut the FAA. Now, I'm not saying that there's no need for the organization, but I think there are so many areas in which the organization is more of a hindrance to safety, welfare, and commerce, not to mention just the enjoyment of the sky, than it needs to be. We have too high a regulatory burden. We have too many things that we're beholden to that make absolutely no sense. And the FAA itself does not seem to care much for the recreational or general side of aviation, and is a constant roadblock at every turn. Need I say what happened with the Airshow and EAA this year? Re-registration is already turning into a major nightmare. A number of other things are occurring. We had the sleep apnea bit. It's just wrong. But let's go beyond that. We need to look at how people get into aviation. And the fact of the matter is that most of us, it comes later in life because it's all we can afford. So we need to take a look at the entry level. I think we need to rethink the concept of what was the ultralight industry. In its heyday, it was wildly popular. And then it got clobbered. It got clobbered by reality. It wasn't as safe as it could have been. And those of us who tried to make it that way, or at least talk about it, got clobbered for that. It certainly had a lot of problems and so forth, but there was an essence to it that was pure and beautiful and inexpensive and still brought tens of thousands of people to aviation where nothing else had before. We need to look at the entry level. We need to look at airplanes or aircraft that can be built for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 and at least get people enthused about the concept of flying and aviating. We need to take a look at one of the reasons why airplanes have become so expensive. It comes down to this. I mean, we've got avionics making leaps and bounds, less expensive than ever and more capable than ever. Why can't we do that with airframes and engines? Now, I understand that there's going to be problems in figuring out how to build airframes more cost effectively. But when you take a look at the average $100,000 to $150,000 LSA or more, $30,000 to $40,000 or as much as $30,000 to $40,000 of its expense lies in front of the firewall. We need to bring those costs down. What we need is a new engine or a new series of engines or a manufacturer looking to build engines cost effectively. If we were to have those costs, we'd really make a big dent in the LSA movement. One of the main objections people have to LSA is it's too darned expensive. We are going to hold an aviation innovation conference this year, which will look at this and so many other things. But I'd like to hear from you. We know we can fix aviation. We have a number of ideas, but what about yours? What do you think? What do you know? What do you believe? What do you want? What is it going to take for you, and more important, the people around you, to take a chance on learning to fly, being an aircraft owner, and being a part of our community? I posit this. We have a business worth saving, can be saved, and can be viable well into the future. Think about it. For the Aero-News Network, Airborne, and Aero-TV, I'm Jim Campbell.
They were chilling words spoken by NASA's then Public Affairs Officer, Steve Nesbitt, on January 28, 1986. Quote, "Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction." End quote. Nesbitt was describing the explosion of the Challenger space shuttle 73 seconds after launch from the Kennedy Space Center, resulting in the loss of 7 astronauts. Now, pop icon Beyonce has sampled Nesbitt's words and used them at the beginning of a video for her song XO about a relationship in trouble. While it's reported that the singer is contrite, current and former astronauts, along with the families of those in the accident, say the use of the clip in a song about a lost love mocks the sacrifice the crew made. In a statement, Beyonce said the song was recorded with the sincerest intention to help heal those who have lost loved ones, and the songwriters included the audio in tribute to the unselfish work of the Challenger crew, with hopes that they will never be forgotten. Well, that's our program. Remember, you can get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. Please remember, Airborne is streamed twice weekly and is always online. But stay tuned for a special announcement about some really big news for this year's schedule. In the meantime, join us again every Tuesday and Friday for a new edition of Airborne. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching.